Good afternoon and welcome to Oakfield-Alabama Seal of Civic Readiness Symposium. I, alongside Mrs. Slaginoff, thank you for coming to listen to our class explain how our class researched the issue that they had a passion for and how they made positive change. And just a reminder for everyone here, we're going to be appropriate with our projects at all times. This is our third year of offering the Seal of Civic Readiness in our district. Before we have our students present their capstone projects, we wanted to give a little background information about this class. The term civic readiness is the ability to make positive difference in the public life of our communities through the combination of civic knowledge, skills and actions, mindset and experiences. You will hear very shortly how this group of juniors and seniors made a positive difference concerning the topics they selected. By completing this class and our capstone project, these three students will earn a special distinction on their high school diploma. The New York State Seal of Civic Readiness is a formal recognition that a student has demonstrated the civic knowledge, skills, mindset, and experiences necessary to become an actively engaged citizen. The Seal of Civic Readiness distinction on high school transcript and diploma shows the student's understanding and commitment to participatory government, civic responsibility, and civic values, provides universities and colleges with a method to recognize and provide credit for attainment of higher education of understanding and skills in social studies, demonstrates to universities, college, and future employers that students have earned recognition for their civic knowledge, skills, mindset, and experiences, and recognizes the value of civic engagement and scholarship to school, communities, and society at large. The Seal of Civic Readiness was introduced by New York State during the 2001 and 2022 school year. 50 districts throughout New York State piloted this class in the first year, with our neighbors Alba and Holly being one of them. Currently, there are over 500 districts in New York State that have applied and got approved to offer this class, and we're very glad our district is one of them. Out of the 22 school districts within our Genesee Valley, Bossies region, all 22 schools offer this opportunity for students to earn this special distinction. But out of those 22 schools in the Bossies region, we are always one of 8 to have students win the distinguished Civic Awards based on our students' capstone projects. Thank you so much for attending, and now my co-teacher, Mrs. Slaginoff, will give a little background about our specific class and students. Thank you.
So good afternoon. I'm just going to tell a little bit about the process that this class has. This class is offered as an elective for full credit every other day because of the rigor involved. It's a great class for those of you that are sitting in the audience to take. It's great as a resume builder, college applications. It looks great, and it really, I think, and the kids can attest to this, a life-altering process for them. But so let me just talk about that process. So the beginning of the school year in September, we do a little bit of background information on political knowledge, who their local leaders are, state and federal, at all three of those levels. And then we bring in a group of stakeholders. We bring in people that work here at school. We bring in our SRO. We brought in community members. We also brought in some government level people locally. And we kind of just talk about what their concerns are, trends that are standing out in our community. So then the students work collaboratively for the first half of the school year on a project of their choice that they choose. And this year they chose to work on reading awareness, especially early age intervention. And the hardest part of the class really is the research piece. They go into the library and they're in my classroom for about a 6-week process where they are looking at reliable sourcing from both perspectives on the topic, and then they have to develop a thesis out of that and then write an 8-page paper using multiple sources on that. And then, like Mr. Bueller had said, in order for the students to attain their Seal of Civic Readiness, They also have to do a Be Informed portion, which is an educational piece, and a Take Action portion, which is the actual change that they are trying to have happen. So for their Be Informed, they created flyers with educational information of the importance of early reading intervention, both from at home and what can be done here at school. And they handed those things out at Christmas in the Village, and also handed some things out at, I think, the Christmas concerts here at school. And then for their Take Action, they actually worked in conjunction with the Haxton Memorial Library, and they hosted a reading awareness night where we got a hold of the PTO, and they very generously gave us a donation to help offer some pizza that night to have a dinner, and free books for young students, or not even students, ages 0 to 5. And then they modeled reading, they gave a presentation, they did a craft night, and all three of them, they did a fantastic job organizing that. And then after that, after we've modeled all that, they're going to start the entire process over again. Except this time they need to do this individually on a topic of their choice, that's something that they feel passionate about and something that they want to see change and how they can help make that change happen. And that's why we're here, standing before you today, to show you and to showcase them and their hard work. We are extremely proud of all three of them. They have busted their rear ends through this entire process, and like I mentioned earlier, I honestly believe that they are changed people as a result of this. The growth that Mr. Wheeler and I have seen in these young people is astronomical, and we couldn't be more proud of them. So at this time, I would like to introduce Tegan to come on up here and for your presentation.
Hello everybody, I'm Tegan Falk. I'm a senior here at Oakfield, and for my capstone project, I'm tackling barriers to healthcare. So, identifying the issue. I was inspired by recent talk of healthcare in the news, and by my own personal experience with barriers to healthcare. My research led me to my thesis that there are significant barriers, specifically the socioeconomic status of the individual, that block access to healthcare in the U.S., which both federal and local governments should do more to address, leading to increased overall health of people. In general, people with low socioeconomic status and people who live in rural areas have lower health outcomes. Oakfield falls into both of these categories. I don't think that I need to establish that Oakfield is rural, but I do want to show you just how financially disadvantaged our community is. In 2023, the median household income of New York residents was around $85,000 a year. In the same year, the median household income of Genesee County was around $72,000 a year. And for Oakfield, it was around $59,000 a year. The graph seen on the right just shows these statistics as visual. So you might be asking, what are barriers to healthcare? A barrier to healthcare is simply any obstacle that prevents a person from gaining access to healthcare. Because this definition is so broad, there are many different types of barriers. So some examples, a financial barrier might look like the inability to afford a copay, or an inability to afford a copay, or a lack of insurance, while a geographical barrier could be a lack of transportation or being unable to find a provider in your area. Even seemingly invisible things like social barriers exist. This could be a lack of healthcare knowledge or just fear of stigmas around seeking healthcare. There are many more examples of barriers to healthcare, but these are just a few. So the analysis of my research. This issue is important because health is the foundation for all other aspects of life. On the right is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Health would fall right at the bottom under physiological needs, meaning that until the sick individual is healthy, they cannot focus on any other aspect of life, like safety and security or love and belonging. So I'd like everybody in the audience, please, to raise your hand if you've ever been sick in your entire life. And this is why you guys all understand that making sure people having access to healthcare is very important. Additionally, because people in general cannot choose to get sick, I believe that all people deserve healthcare. So, some history. The Affordable Care Act of 2010 was one of the largest recent changes to America's health system. The ACA expanded Medicaid, placed regulations on insurance companies, and lowered out-of-pocket costs for individuals. These changes led to a decrease in uninsured individuals from 15% to 7.7%, which is a historic low. It decreased discrimination in healthcare settings and overall increased health outcomes. While there were certainly some issues with the ACA, it was a landmark piece of legislation that established expanding Medicaid, increasing regulation on employers and insurance companies, and restricting discrimination in any healthcare circumstance all positively impacted health outcomes. President Trump's recent legislation has cut over $1 trillion to various healthcare agencies, including Medicare and Medicaid. As the ACA established, funding for Medicaid leads to increased health outcomes, so one could assume that cutting funding will decrease health outcomes. A multitude of studies have found that lower socioeconomic status is correlated with lower health outcomes. A 2017 study of 1,165 males from the U.S. found that an increased socioeconomic status was found to have a protective effect on physical health. Teens and young adults with low socioeconomic status experienced an increase in BMI, hypertension, and overall health risk. In a study done on 352 pairs of twins from ages 0 to 14, it was found that poorer health was more likely to be reported in the working class twin. Another study found that socioeconomic status not only affects physical health, but also mental health. The study found that those with a higher average income felt a higher purpose in life, self-acceptance, and personal growth compared to those with a lower average income. This leads us to a clear conclusion that income is positively associated with psychological well-being. Additionally, people with low socioeconomic status are less likely to take preventative care. 41% of people with low socioeconomic status have received a cholesterol test in the last year, compared to 64% of those with higher socioeconomic status. 54% of people with low socioeconomic status have had a recent mammogram, while 80% of those with higher socioeconomic status have. And 20% of people with low socioeconomic status have had a colon cancer test, while 54% of those with higher socioeconomic status have had one. That's literally double. People in rural areas are at an increased risk of heart disease, obesity, stroke, respiratory disease, diabetes, and cancer. Additionally, children in rural areas are twice as likely to die of suicide. And 80% of rural America is considered to be medically underserved. To find out what barriers affected my local community most, I published a survey on Parent Square and sent it out to the entire student body. My study found that 49% of all people who took the survey had faced barriers to healthcare throughout their lives. I want to share some important and recurring themes that popped up throughout my research. People had difficulties with communication between their practitioners. They had problems with transportation to appointments, long wait times for specialists. A lack of dental care was extremely common in my survey, and many were denied coverage by insurance and have experienced increased copays. Additionally, I held interviews with professionals, Ms. Starkweather, the school nurse, Ms. Hoffmeister, the school social worker, and 2 employees at the Oakfield family pharmacy. Some recurring topics that were discussed were, again, a lack of dental care, a lack of transportation, a mental health crisis, and again, an increase in copays and a decrease of coverage by insurance companies. So I want to share just a short story that the women at the pharmacy told me. Recently, they witnessed a patient's copay go from less than $10 to over $300 for seemingly no reason other than bureaucratic nonsense. So taking informed action to educate people on barriers to healthcare, I made this informational flyer. I also added resources specified for different types of barriers to healthcare. I put the flyer up across the school and also had it published on Facebook and Student Square and Parent Square. I picked a flyer because they are easy to distribute and are attention grabbing. To take civic action on my issue, I sent 23 letters to different representatives, both local and federal, expressing how I felt about our current healthcare outcomes. I want our legislators to advocate for increased funding of government healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid. You might be wondering how there's 23 letters when there's only 14 people, but I sent the big guys who are in Washington, D.C., sent a letter to their office, and then their satellite office that was the closest to us. Communicating with my community. My flyer allowed me to communicate the barriers to healthcare to my local community, while letters allowed me to communicate my concerns about healthcare legislation to representatives in my local, state, and national community. So the strengths of my flyer were that it's easy to distribute, it's attention grabbing, it's cheap, so I was able to make money, and digital distribution allowed for many more people to be able to see it. Some weaknesses of my flyer were that the size of the flyer limited the amount of information that I could share with people, and physical posters are susceptible to damage. Some strengths of my letters were that they're an easy way to contact legislators who can sometimes feel a bit unreachable, and some weaknesses of my letters were that mail is slow, and I can't actually control what the politicians do once they get my letter. So, reflecting, the biggest problem or challenge that I faced throughout this project is that I really wanted to have a health fair with a mobile clinic as the centerpiece and a lot of other health resources, but because of long wait times for mobile clinics, I was unable to organize this event, and I was pretty bummed. Personally, this project has been incredibly fulfilling and has inspired me to continue to be an agent of change for the rest of my life. Thank you.
So the first question I have, I mean, you have a lot of good research, but what would be, like when you were doing this, what would you find as a solution? You know, you identified a lot of issues other than coming up with your flyer and some resources that are online. What would be a solution to fix this issue that you noticed? Like, is there something you can present to, these politicians that would actually help them make a decision on how to fix this problem?
So, on the federal level, again, the ACA, that whole thing, I do believe that expanding healthcare programs from our government and honestly national, local, and state levels would help people gain more access to healthcare. So, expanding those programs. Then, on the local level, just kind of evaluating what your community needs and then trying to figure that out. For our community, it would be dental stuff is a big problem, transportation, and then the whole lack of insurance kind of goes to a national issue.
And then one of the other things I have before I pass it on, so there's a lot of talk about universal health care. And
Yeah.
I have family that live up in Canada, and Canada has universal health care. It's all the stuff that we talk about here in the United States. Although the availability of health care for people in Canada is absolutely atrocious. If we're talking about long wait times now, where people have insurance in the United States, the wait times in Canada is astronomical. Is that what you're talking about, something like universal health care? Because people do have access to health care in the United States, so I'm not exactly sure, what are you looking at when it comes to that? again, access to doctors. There's just a lack of professionals that can support the amount of people that are looking for healthcare.
What's the question?
So like what's the solution when it comes to these long wait times? I know you said like you want more programs, but we have a lack of doctors, a lack of facilities. Is there a solution for that?
So probably increasing the amount of facilities and providers. Off the top of my head, I think that a good way that, off the dome, a good way that I think that we could get more providers, because that is an issue, there's tons and tons of barriers to healthcare, is if the government incentivized them with some kind of, hey, we'll pay off your student loans because being a doctor is expensive. I think more people would become doctors.
That's fair.
I'm curious, we talked about long wait times for a mobile clinic. What were the agencies that had the long wait times for the clinic?
So, honestly, trying to do this pretty last minute. It's not that long of a wait time, but I went through something earlier this year and it kind of pushed my project off to the last minute a little bit, so that's why I am pretty bummed. But I talked to Oak Orchard, who I believe used to come to the elementary school, and then I was talking to UB because they have a mobile dental clinic, and I was very interested in that. That one did have like a pretty long wait time, and people were not getting back to me about that one.
And then how does, when you have a mobile clinic come out, how does the insurance work at a mobile clinic? Is it still the same insurance and numbers, or is the mobile clinic, does that improve access?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure that it's free. I'd be able to answer this a little bit better if I did start like organizing with them, but just like the dates were too far out, so we didn't discuss a whole bunch of details. I would assume that they're free or that insurance would cover them.
Thank you.
First, great job to you. Very nice. One of the things I particularly appreciated was when you're looking at the income of not just in Genesee County, but you started in New York State, and then you saw visually Genesee County was lower, and visually how Oakfield was lower. I live in Orleans County in the town of Kendall, so if you put those numbers up there, it would look very similar. So I'm very aware of some of these issues, and they're very valid. I love that you took action and wrote to the legislators, and a lot of them. My question for you is, did anybody respond, and if they did, what was the response?
I did not get any responses.
Oh, that's disheartening.
I know.
That's disheartening. Again, I'm going to touch back a little bit to the mobile clinic because I know in elementary school they have talked, they would like to bring that dental mobile clinic back. And so we were 100% spot on in terms of what would be a solution, at least in our little area, to maybe help locally. That's a great one. I'm not sure if you've talked to Mrs. Cuddy next door, she's the nurse. That would be like a great conversation, just maybe to put the bug in somebody's ear, and maybe moving forward, we can get that going again in this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tegan, first of all, fantastic job.
Thank you.
Well prepared. Your slides were excellent. The way you presented was just really, you nailed it. So thank you for that. My question to you is, as you went through this process, what was the biggest revelation for you? Or maybe put another way, when you started out, you kind of maybe had a hypothesis. Did your research support your hypothesis, or did you find some things that were different than what you originally thought when you started?
That's a great question. So I would say like my biggest revelation is when I realized just how like intersectional this issue is. So when I went into it, I did think that socioeconomic status and like how much money you make would influence it a lot, and I was correct about that, but it's so many more things. It's where you live, like the rural thing caught me by surprise. I did not realize how medically underserved our area is, and a lot of rural areas. And I was shocked about the social factors too. Obviously, like living, what some of the like, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor, it's kind of embarrassing to tell them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But just how like connected really everything is, and like how connected your socioeconomic status is to all these other things as well. So just the intersectionality of it. I'm sorry, I'm not wording this very well, but as an example, somebody who has low socioeconomic status might also face the social barriers just because in their community that is fiscally underprivileged, they might not have the best health education, or they're not able to eat the healthiest foods. So all that stuff like interlocks. It's very intersectional.
Yeah, I think that's a great revelation. What aspect of this entire process, right, from the time that you started, other than maybe time, because we all are challenged by time, what aspect of this did you find most challenging?
Well, maybe, I think making my presentation was a little difficult just because there were so many things that I wanted to say and tell people about, and it's kind of hard to fit all of those things into a short presentation. I would have loved to like do more statistics because there's so many insane statistics, but I do not want to like bore people to death. So that was a little difficult to like, now I know so much and I know how little I knew before, and I want to educate everybody to the extent that I am now, and it's just not super possible in the amount of time that I have.
Well, thank you. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Colin Kirkham, a junior here, and I'm doing my SEAL Civic Readiness capstone project on ADHD awareness in classrooms. So, for identifying this issue, so the way I identified this issue is that I myself struggle with ADHD, and I was not treated or helped the best at a young age in elementary school, and that effect carried over into middle school and high school a little bit, and it definitely affected me overall. This issue is national, with over 7 million children just being diagnosed with ADHD across the nation, and that's just diagnosed. There's many kids who are undiagnosed ADHD. So also for identifying this issue, the people that are affected by this issue are all the young students that have to learn about having ADHD, that struggle to learn. The parents of these students who have to try to help these kids through school and teach them themselves almost. And then obviously the teachers that have to teach these kids while also having to teach themselves about ADHD. So my research led me to the thesis that due to the lack of professional mandated training and knowledge about educating students with ADHD, teachers are not equipped with the skills and strategies to effectively teach students with ADHD. So what is ADHD? ADHD is a developmental disorder that can be identified through an ongoing pattern of some of these symptoms, like inattention, like not being able to pay attention a lot, keeping on task, staying organized, or hyperactivity, like squirming around often, even in times where they shouldn't be, like inappropriate times, feeling restless, talking excessively, or impulsivity, like interrupting people, intruding on others, and just having trouble waiting their turn overall. So over the 6 weeks that we researched through databases and on websites, I found that only 65% of teachers have favorable knowledge towards ADHD. Around 33% of students with ADHD drop out of high school, which is double that of their peers without ADHD. And then there are around 7 million students in the U.S. aged 3 to 17 that have been diagnosed with ADHD. On the right is a graph of the prevalence of ADHD in schools and how many of them actually have a 504 plan and how much it actually helps these students. So a 504 plan gives changes in the way like children learn, like taking tests in quiet spaces, like different ways information is presented to them through like audiobooks and like instructional supports and like getting outlines of lessons. Many students do not have one, and it's just many children do not know about it, and it helps them severely. So the analysis: every child deserves a chance to shine, no matter the disability or what they have. If you have ADHD or anything, you should be able to learn effectively as much as your other students. This issue has been addressed in the past through the IDEA Act, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which was signed in 1975 by Gerald Ford at the top right there, and the 504 plan, which is under the Rehabilitation Act in 1973, signed by Richard Nixon on the bottom. And the IDEA Act is a law that ensures a free, appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities all over the nation, and it gives special education-related services to those children. And just overall, teachers and students aren't getting help because teachers aren't getting effectively taught in college about ADHD, so they cannot effectively teach the students with ADHD so they cannot get help. So for my being informed, I sent out a detailed survey to teachers that had statistics on ADHD and what it looks like in the classrooms. And I also under that had a survey that gathered info from teachers on if they were even trained and how they were trained in ADHD, just to see like what our school looks like compared to other schools. So a few of the questions were, so my questions were, have you had any professional mandated training on handling these students with ADHD? If yes, where did you get the training? What strategies do you use to set your children up for success? Do you have students in your classroom that are not formally diagnosed with ADHD and do not have a formal IEP or 504 plan? Do you believe more training should be mandated for teachers to help properly deal with students, and then why? So, for the first question, I got surprisingly for OA more yeses than nos on if they've received mandated training of students with ADHD, and majority of it came from undergrad studies and professional development here at OA. And then for the other ones, I got most of the answers with the teachers are just sharing how they do it, like just giving them more test-taking time, they give them breaks, they give them check-ins, they outline the lesson way more to these children. That's just mainly what their answers were. And then I got 25 yeses compared to 4 no's for if they had students that are not diagnosed with ADHD and don't have a 504 plan, which is wild. Every student with ADHD should have at least one of these because it helps them significantly. And then I got 24 yeses for do you believe more training should be mandated? So teachers also believe that more classes should be mandated so they can learn about ADHD. And then some of the answers for the last question, just talking about how like this one teacher's answer, ADHD shows itself in so many different forms. Some people have it and aren't diagnosed until much later in life and realize that it was the reason they struggled in school. It's always going to be informed of new techniques. All the teachers that answered this agreed that there should be more training and that it's good to have it as long as there's no extra money taken out of it or more time. It's just a good thing to have for the teachers and the students. I also did do a follow-up survey asking on their age range of just to figure out if it's like the newer teachers learning more about it and if the training was more specifically on ADHD or grouped with other special education aspects. So for my Take Action, I created a video and sort of slideshow for teachers which went out to the whole Genesee Valley BOCES region, and it had statistics on ADHD in school and why it's important and why training is important. And it also had data from OA itself here. And this slideshow this Take Action was great because I was able to get this out to the teachers who are actually teaching the students. And I also sent this out to the Department of Education who have the ability to make a change in the college curriculum or just to help teachers in general learn about ADHD. And then on the right is a picture of the clip. So I communicated this issue to the larger community by, as I said, I sent this video to all the teachers in the region and the Department of Education. And the weaknesses is that I'm not really sure if all the teachers looked at the video, and I'm unsure if the Department of Education saw the video as well. But the strengths, once again, is that I got it to the people who are actually teaching these students and to the Department of Education who can make a change and help these teachers. So, reflecting my process, I was not expecting the data I got from Oakfield-Alabama. So the data we got here was surprisingly really positive, which is a good thing. But it did really disprove my thesis a little bit, but it is a good thing that we are increasing in awareness for it. I believe that I could have asked some other schools for data to help compare more to our school and see are we doing better than other schools? Are they doing better than us? I thought I could have done a bigger follow-up survey as well on what specific classes they were taught on with ADHD, like why it was grouped with other special education, and just how they learned it. And I do think I could have done more informational being informed, because the majority of it was the survey. I think I could have done a little more on what it actually looks like even more in classrooms, just so the teachers understand. And overall, I just don't know, are OA teachers using their training that they got for ADHD? I'm not really sure if they're actually using the training they got, and I don't know how many classes they actually took on it. So, when reflecting on the challenges, obviously, the data from OA did not represent my thesis, which is still a good thing, because it shows that we're really good here. Choosing what to do for my take actually was really hard. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about solving this, or proposing a solve to this, so I thought about it and then decided to get it out to the big hitters that would actually be able to teach the students and make a change. And then the best ways to inform teachers would be informed was a struggle for me. Like if I wanted to email them separately, give out flyers, talk to them, but I just ended up deciding on the survey in the end. So for future steps and actions, I can email and call the Department of Education and ask about and advocate for this issue in schools. I can study the curriculum for colleges and figure out how they can improve in their classes specifically and how they can push more ADHD classes. And I can just talk to teachers here and promote using resources for self-study of ADHD. For example, the CHAD program, which offers free or I think it's little to no money to teach teachers on ADHD in classrooms. Oh, so what did I get out of this? So this project showed me that it's not the teacher's fault for not being able to handle students with ADHD. It's more over the college curriculum that's teaching them and not giving them enough knowledge on ADHD to actually handle it. It also showed me how many children are actually diagnosed with ADHD and suffer from it and that are not helped in school or even just drop out of college or high school entirely.
Another really outstanding job. Thank you, and I like the way you personalized it. that was great. I really appreciate your reflection and some questions to be raised afterwards. You named, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 questions that in and of themselves could either be master thesis or doctorate thesis. If there was one aspect of this topic that you wanted to study more, do you have an idea what that might be?
I definitely I would want to study more like what specifically the teachers, what kind of classes they take in college that teach them about ADHD and see like actually how much is it, because majority of the teachers in my follow-up survey mentioned that the training wasn't specifically on ADHD, it was just grouped with, so I just would like to study more on like what kind of classes they took for it.
Great. Thank you very much. Again, outstanding job.
Thank you.
Nice job. So actually, you probably don't recall, but I'm one of the people that hit please give me access to your video so I can watch it. So I really appreciated seeing that. I was pleased to see that OA came out higher than you expected in terms of our teachers' education. But my question for you, and I'm not even sure how to phrase this, but you said you had personal interest, you've struggled with ADHD, it's made school harder, so that kind of prompted you to research this a little bit more. What do you think we could do to help students themselves learn about it? I mean, as a student who has lived with ADHD and has gone through school with ADHD, what could we do to help our students learn how to better manage some of the things that go on that interfere with learning?
So I definitely think that it could be like not taught in classrooms, but like mentioned to it so they can understand what it is that they're dealing with and like definitely like teaching these students like what they can do themselves to help like better themselves and like understand like what it is and how to like learn while having ADHD. Like I think being taught that would help a lot, definitely in classrooms.
Yeah, I think students have that ability to advocate for themselves. And part of that is knowledge. So, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Colin. My question, I guess, is a little more, don't quite, Mrs. Randall said, don't know quite how to phrase it, but in your results for OA, you mentioned being surprised. What part surprised you the most and why?
So it definitely surprised me that it surprised me on really how many were actually said they got mandated training. I was really surprised that a lot of them said that they got their training from here itself, showing that we have a really good program here for teaching on it. But I was just really surprised about how many teachers actually receive training, even though I myself in elementary school didn't receive the best experience, but seeing the amount of teachers that say they did receive training and what they use definitely surprised me. And then it also surprised me how many little students don't have a 504 and IEP plan, but also are just undiagnosed with ADHD as well. Is that Thank you.
Okay, yeah, great presentation. A couple things that I have. So you focus your presentation on, teacher education and how to deal with students in the classroom. Did you see anything on, medication for students that are on ADHD, and if that is more, if that's a positive result, and maybe how the teachers can work with a student that's on medication? Did you look into anything of that?
So I didn't really look up anything on that, but I myself did have that medication at one point, and I found it was sort of helpful, but it's not really, medication just depends on the person, and it can really affect you differently no matter who you are. And it negatively affects some students and then possibly affects a lot of different students, so it's hard to say if every student should use medication and some shouldn't.
So in your belief, you feel that teaching strategies would be better than putting a kid on medication and trying to solve the issue?
Yes, teaching them more about what ADHD is and how to help them more is, I feel would be a little better than medication.
And throughout your research, did you find anything on the root causes of ADHD and why so many kids have?
Actually, not. That is a good question. I will look that up actually later.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the things where, if we know what the root cause is, working with teaching strategies, maybe that is a way to help incorporate all that.
Yeah.
No, excellent job.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Landon Pangrazio. I am a junior here at Oakfield, and this is my sealed civic capstone project advocating for ICE reform. To first identify the issue, we have to know what ICE is. ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is a federal law enforcement agency under the United States Department of Homeland Security. Their purpose is to protect national security and public safety by enforcing federal immigration and customs laws, and they have many responsibilities, obviously deportation and removal, homeland security investigations, and also national security protection. The steps to identifying my issue. So at the beginning of the year, or middle of the year, I'd say we were tasked to choose a topic that we wanted to research. So at Oakfield, I play sports, I'm involved in many classes, and I've noticed from a recent trend from different ICE enforcement policies, many Hispanic and undocumented people who have undocumented family members in their family, they've been showing just signs of distress. I think people come talk to me about it. I've seen its effects on the people around me, so that's why I chose to pick ICE enforcement policies as research. I also want to say this is not an anti-ICE or an ICE-out research. This is an ICE reform. So with that, I went straight to research. I wrote an 8-page research paper evaluating 25 different sources. I spent days in the library, the Schleidenhaus room, just comparing different administrations to President Trump's administration. And through this research, I came to the conclusion that ICE enforcement policies require reform. So, this is a national issue. Undocumented immigrants, naturalized immigrants, so people who were foreign-born then became citizens, and Hispanics and Latinos are targets of current ICE enforcement policies. There's around 10.9 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, which makes up around 3 to 4% of the population. There's 50.2 million naturalized immigrants in the United States, States, which is around 15% of the population. And there's around 68 million Hispanics and Latinos in the United States, or around 20% of the population. Like I said, these people are the targets of current ICE enforcement policies. So identifying the issue, what policies require reform? So currently, ICE can detain individuals in schools, workplaces, and places of worship. They can also create collateral arrests. So collateral arrests occur when agents go to a certain location or area to search for a specific target, and they have a warrant for this person, but they also end up detaining or arresting other individuals at the site where their original person who the warrant was issued for was. So many times people are just swept up because they're there at the ambush. So the problem, when ICE is allowed to create these arrests, it harms and instills fear in communities and also uncertainty in communities. So my thesis, in order to protect community safety, preserve public trust, federal policies must prohibit ICE arrests in schools, workplaces, places of worship, while also banning collateral arrests. The research. Like I said, I wrote an 8-page research paper, and these numbers were really what appealed to me in the paper. Earlier, I said there was around 10.9 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States. According to the Center for Migration Studies, around 8.5 million undocumented immigrants are a part of the workforce. So around 78% of undocumented immigrants are working and contributing to the United States economy. Additionally, the deportation numbers and the percent of crimes committed and convictions also appeal to me as well. According to Cato Institute, around 73% of detainees have no conviction at all, and only around 5% have committed violent crimes. So violent crimes like kidnapping, murder, rape, smuggling drugs, stuff like that. Another number that appeals to me was that 5.62 million United States citizen children live with an undocumented family member. So these children live in fear that when they come home from school, daycare, wherever they have, that their parents, family members won't be there once they're home. Children should not have to live in that fear. So why is this important? Like I said, children shouldn't have to wonder if the people they love will still be home when they come home. And people shouldn't have to worry about being detained at schools, work, or churches. This impacts society negatively. These current ICE enforcement policies instill fear, uncertainty, and separate families. In previous administrations, like President Obama and President Biden, arrests were prohibited in safe places such as schools, workplaces, and places of worship. But now, under President Trump, those arrests aren't allowed. For the educational piece of my project, my Be Informed, I decided to write letters to basically chairperson and ranking members. So I wrote to Michael Guest and Lou Korea, who are the chairperson and ranking member for Board of Security and Enforcement, Rand Paul and Gary Peters, who are the chairperson and ranking member of Homeland Security and Government Affairs, John Corney and Alex Medea, who are the chairperson and ranking member for Board of Security and Jurisdiction. I wrote these letters to these congressmen because they have the power to change policies regarding the ICE enforcement. In these letters, they advocate for immigration reform that keeps families together, protects due process, strengthens community, but also balances national security. For my Take Action piece, I decided to host an ICE reform rally on June 7th at 2 p.m. outside of Batavia City Court. So I thought when choosing this, the best way to follow letters, I felt the need to have this rally because it shows that people within my community seriously care about this topic. So, for preparations, I created a flyer, which is seen above, where I have when, where, the message, what to bring. So I advocated that this was not an anti-ICE or an ICE out posters and sent a series of emails asking for support from groups like Wyoming County Indivisible, Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace, and Alianza Agricola. So here's some of the posters that I made. In the top left, I have respect the Constitution, respect due process. The Fourth and Fifth Amendments are at risk. So the Fourth Amendment protects individuals don't have unreasonable search and seizure upon them, so that co-aligns with the collateral arrest when they're swept up in investigations. Also, the Fifth Amendment guarantees the fundamental rights to a legal and fair trial, so the due process. I also have in the top right, keep families together, because children in the United States, no matter who they are, they deserve stability, and their family members should not be taken away from them. Also, my favorite personally in the bottom right, I have that national security and justice can coexist. So the rally. Like I said, the basis of this rally was no raids in schools, workplaces, and places of worship, and also no collateral arrests. At this rally, there were testimonies from Andrea Salinas, who was a member of Alianza Agricola, which is like an immigrant farm workers organization, and she provided testimonies on behalf of other members who have how their life has been impacted by current ICE enforcement. A speech from local attorney James Schmieder. So James Schmieder also helped me contact the local police, Civic Police, and also the courthouse to give me permission to protest there on that day safely. A speech from peace activist Dr. Arnold Matlin, who's also the co-founder of Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace. And so he provided a speech on the importance of civic activism and why people should be involved. And a speech from Diana Castellan, who was running for the New York 24th Congressional District as a Democrat. At the start of this rally, I was very nervous about the turnout, and as 2 o'clock come by, I only had my personal friends and Mr. Schleich, Mr. Bueller, Mrs. Schleich, and it would seem like nobody would show up. I'd say around 2:10, 2:30, between that time frame, 30 people showed up, and there was around 40 plus people who attended this rally, so it was a very good turnout. And also, there wasn't a lot of bad attention from people driving by. There wasn't people screaming out their windows. It was just lots of honks and just supporting people. So how to communicate this issue? I sent out flyers via email to teachers and students. I reached out to the multiple organizations asking for their support, to post this on their websites they have for the protest groups. And I also posted a flyer on my personal social media account, asked my friends to encourage others to come and post it on their social media account as well. I also sent press releases to Batavian, the TV Daily News, Spectrum News 1 Rochester, and Video News Service. So from those press releases, I was interviewed and posted by Spectrum News 1 Rochester, which made statewide news and New York City-wide news. I was also interviewed and posted by the Batavia, Video News Service Batavia, and also the Batavia Daily News. Like I said, there was a very solid turnout for the rally, and multiple organizations spread and supported my message. There were some weaknesses though. Some organizations obviously didn't respond to my emails, my texts, my calls, so they couldn't come out and support. And also some organizations wanted me to change my message to an anti-ICE rally or an ICE out rally. But even though I was under that pressure, I did not want to change my message to just an ICE reform message. So the reflection, the challenges. So at Oakfield, I couldn't hang flyers around the school for my rally, and also the school couldn't really post this my flyer because the school can't take a political view. So I couldn't post it on Parent Square or any of the school social medias. Another obstacle was planning the date for the rally that accommodated my teachers, fellow students, and the organizations. In the future, I want to continuously write to members of the House of Representatives and Senate. So I do this to continue pressure and prove it's not just a one and done for my high school civics class. This class has had an immense impact on me personally. At the beginning of the year, I had very little to no clue on politics. I didn't really have a stance. I didn't know if I wanted to be involved or not, but throughout the year, it's just changed the way I view everything. It opened my eyes to civics, the importance of civic activism, and in the future, I will for sure be involved for the rest of my life.
Hey, first of all, outstanding presentation, and the work you did out in the community is awesome, especially getting all those media outlets involved and everything like that, which is great. This definitely is a hot topic. I love the debate. I'll say that for Mr. Bueller, but just ask a couple questions. So ICE has been around for a while. It's operated for quite a long time. So why do you think, after looking at your research, why do you think right now there's been such a negative effect on ICE, even though it's been operating? Why is it getting so much attention right now?
I feel like right now the reason it gets so much attention is because lots of news medias have been pushing out the messages of what the cost from ICE enforcement. And so many people have been anti-ICE, ICE out, but I'm advocating for this ICE reform. So in previous administrations like President Obama and President Biden, arrests couldn't be made in the schools, workplaces, and churches. But now that they are under President Trump, that's really, I feel like, what causes these stories like students getting arrested in schools. News medias want to pick that up and just run with the story and stuff like that. Also, a huge deal is the polarization in our country as well. You have two sides combating, and they both think the other is totally wrong, which really pushes out, like I said, the media's people these messages that are just either anti-ICE or very, very pro-ICE.
That's good. The other question I have is, so where do you suggest ICE operate if it can't operate in schools, workplaces, churches?
Right, so in previous administrations, they would have warrants, so they have either judicial warrants or warrants signed by another higher ranking ICE official. So these warrants would be I-200s or I-205s, and so they go to homes, stuff like that, or other public places like stores, just not in the schools or specific workplaces or these places of worship were just originally called safe places from previous administrations. They were hands off, don't go in there because it disrupts communities basically.
And last question, do you think it'd be better if we change it to the National Immigration Customs Enforcement?
You say that again.
Do you think it'd be better if we changed the name to the National Immigration Customs
Enforcement? I feel like
nice.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That definitely be pretty funny because then you have news outlets saying nice enforcement, so it definitely turn people's heads.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Very nice job with this project, Brandon. Mine's a two-part question. You did a very nice job organizing this community project. You received a lot of attention. What surprised you the most, both in the in-person event and the online attention that you received?
I feel like the stuff that surprised me the most in person was the amount of honks I received, the support. Because I felt like in Batavia, Jensen County, very Republican, and they're pro-ICE. They're not going to really want to support my message. So I was glad to see all the positive attention from the roads. And I'd say online, I feel like just all the people on the TV and the comments, just people who are commenting ignorantly. They comment based on the headline, and they don't actually listen to the message. I remember reading one comment and somebody asking, so why does it need to be changed? Why are you advocating for it now but not the past 4 administrations? And I was thinking I wasn't even alive for the administrations. I thought it was pretty funny.
I love those insightful thoughts.
Great presentation, Ruben. Logistically, one of the things I really appreciated, your physical presentation that we're watching right now, and you're speaking to, is very well laid out. It's very sequential. For the way my brain operates, I really appreciated that. So great job just in I also really appreciate your emphasis on reform, right? This isn't anti-ICE, this is reform. Like Mr. Schneider said, this is a really polarizing issue. It's a tough one to tackle, so I'm impressed that you even took it on to tackle. So the online messaging, you just have to comment about, like, those are keyboard warriors, right? And I'm sure at your age, you know, certain people feel that ability to just say whatever they want online, and you just have to put those comments aside. Where I'm really interested, at the end, you made a comment about you're interested in this, you're not letting this go, this is an issue that you want to continue to talk about and pursue. So, how do you imagine that happening?
So for me to continuously pursue this, so I've had many ideas come in my head. It was like maybe starting an indivisible group, they call them, so like a protest group for Genesee County, because Genesee County doesn't have one. Or even just joining like one of the groups I reached out for support, like Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace. Just joining one of them groups and also like continuing like planning rallies or like just sending these letters or direct messages on websites, just continuously to put pressure on these politicians to advocate for that change.
Now, those groups you just mentioned, you said some of the organizations were asking you to change it to anti-ICE messaging. So, what makes you do if you join one of these groups and they're wanting it to be anti-ICE? Like, how do you feel yourself leveraging what you truly believe? I don't want to say against, but amidst what some of those strong opinions might be of people in those advocacy groups.
Yeah, so definitely I want to like get my message across and my beliefs, and so like if an organization wants this to turn into an ISL, I feel like I try to prove also why we need ICE enforcement in some cases. Like you don't want drug trafficking, you don't want people from cartels, gangs coming over to the United States just blatantly like allowing them over. But also, if that does happen, I'll most likely try to start my own group when I'm above 18 years old, just so I can continuously do this in the future.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Great answer.
Great job, really. I'm curious, did you hear, you said you wrote letters. Did you hear from anybody?
As of now, no, and I doubt I will get anything back, because these people they're very high-ranking representatives. Like I said, they're the chairperson and ranking members, so I don't know if they just look at it like, take this away, because mainly the chairpersons are Republicans, but the ranking members may respond because they are Democrats. And so I wrote to the House and Senate, so I feel like it just depends who opens the letter, and I haven't received a response to that.
Is there, I'm going to ask a question I asked earlier, but is there an aspect of this that you want to research more?
I feel like the aspect I want to research more is just like a branch off my idea of like how much undocumented immigrants contribute to the economy, like if they pay taxes or if they like benefit off of federal benefits, like the more economic aspect of this.
Again, fantastic job. Thank you. I just want to say to all three of you, really a fantastic job. And to Schlegelhoff, to Bueller, right, really for guiding them along this way over the course of the year. Really a fantastic job. I'm sure you're very proud of them. Congratulations to all three.
Thank you.
So Mrs. Slag and I are just beyond proud. I mean, the time and effort needed to make these projects happen just did not happen in our 40 minutes of class. No way, Jose. We are very lucky that the Seal of Civic Readiness is supported by Mr. DeMuro here from Genesee Valley BOCES. He's a school improvement coordinator, and this is his baby. He's our social studies rep. He does everything social studies. And there's 22 schools within our region. And he came, I think he's been to every one of our symposiums because of the amazing work our OA students have. So it's an honor that he's here tonight, here today to watch, and I think he has a special award or two. So please welcome Mr. DeMuro from Genesee Valley Bozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller, for that wonderful introduction. It's great to be back in Oakfield. I had the pleasure might be the wrong word, of being Mr. Bueller's roommate for 2 years, for those who don't know that, and teammates in college. So, like I said, I'm just taking things on it. So, on the School Improvement Team at BOCES, we're committed to enhancing civic education in all spheres. This is something that, I've been to every single one of Oakfield's nights, and I'm really proud to do that. When people ask, what do you study, what do you do in school improvement, I say civics, polarization, but political polarization is my favorite. They're like, you like to study that? Yeah, I do. And I want to point out the one unique thing that Oakfield does is that group project before the individual project. To my knowledge, and I do a lot of this work at the state level, there's no other district that does it that way. And what you do is when you do that group project then to the individual, you understand that you have to come into contact with others and compromise. And every project I've seen at Oakfield demonstrates this nuanced piece, right? Like you saw this in Landon's presentation, where he's not calling specifically for anything specifically anti-ICE, but just reform and a change to the system. That's unique in our society today. A lot of our politics is I get my 50%, you get your 50%, we'll see who shows up more, and I'll ram legislation down your throat. That's not what you see in these presentations, so I have a great appreciation for that. So all these students engage in excellent exemplary civic work. Nominations are reviewed by a panel from around the Genesee Valley BOCES region, and they're evaluated based on award criteria, informed citizenship, informed action, and community impact. There's 7 categories that students can be nominated in for City Award. City is from the Latin word that comes from the root of a citizen or civic work. It also sounds like enemies, so that's what we call it, cities. That's kind of funny, I guess. Not really. We're proud to announce this year at the City Awards, the second year we've been able to do this. We have a large endowment. I do some work with the Pro-Human Foundation, and they are gracious enough each year to give us an endowment to provide scholarships to students. And so our City Award winner tonight is going to receive $300 from the Pro-Human Foundation, which will be provided when we get to the Board of Education at BOCES over the summer. And Pro-Human is really proud to do that, and I'm thankful they can do that as well. So today, we did it again, we're going to take time to honor an Oakfield-Alabama student who was chosen to receive an award by our panel. The Lulu Westbrook Griffin and Francis Willer Award. All of our awards are named after local historical figures who embody that work. So these folks are local to our region. This award recognizes students for identifying and taking action to address a significant political, economic, societal issue affecting citizens in the community, state, or nation as a whole. Lulu Westbrook Griffin is a young woman of only 13, took part in the Civil Rights March, and was in prison for over 45 days in dreadful conditions in Leesburg, Georgia. Later in her life, she recorded her experiences and is still asked to publicly speak about her past activism. She moved to Rochester several years later and became a resident of Springwater in 1980. Frances Willard was born in Churchville, New York. This is a huge debate in the community about local historians where she's from, but we consider her one of our own in Genesee County. Frances Elizabeth Caroline Willard was an American educator, temperance reformer, and women's suffragist in the late 19th century, made significant change. Today, I'm really proud to present this award to Landon Pangrazio, who's working in Modern College, Lulu Westbrook Griffin, and Frances Willard. We're going to get one of these guys, a really cool City Award trophy. A certificate as well. We'll be in touch over the summer for scholarship. Nice job, man. I won't go through the portion talking about Landon's project since he already did that, but we're really proud to hand this award to him. But wait, there's more. Just like a bad infomercial with OxyChem, for those of you old enough to remember that. Come on, that dad joke was funny. He's just laughing. He knows everything. The Susan B. Anthony Educator Award recognizes an educator who demonstrates exceptional commitment to civic education and civic leadership, empowering students through meaningful civic learning experiences and fostering informed engagement in their school community. Susan B. Anthony spent 15 years as a teacher in New York State before becoming one of the nation's most influential advocates for women's rights and civic participation. Through her work as an educator and activist, she modeled the belief that education serves as a foundation for an informed citizenry and engaged one. So this is a brand new award this year. This is the first time we're giving this out. And I'm really excited to do it for the first time here in Oakfield with an educator that really deserves it. We're proud to present this award to Mrs. Tracy Schlaganoff, whose work embodies the qualities of Susan B. Anthony. So Tracy was Ms. Tracy Schlaganoff was nominated by Mr. Matt Peterson and Mr. Peter Bueller, the only person to have 2 nominators, I will say. She's been instrumental in building and sustaining Oakfield-Alabama's Seal of Civic Readiness program. I'm not kidding when I tell you people around the state know about this program. We actually have, I run a coalition, the Civic Coalition of 150 teachers in the state, and they actually came to Oakfield to visit and learn about the program and meet with these guys and meet with the students. That doesn't happen everywhere. This region really is a hotbed of civic education that is known around the state. And we have teachers like Mr. Bueller, which I have to thank for that. And so I hope Oakfield will do whatever it can to keep this program going, because this doesn't happen in every building, right? It aligns perfectly with the New York Inspires. These kinds of experiences are excellent for students. And for the students in the audience, if you want to, if you feel that your educational time is spent, I don't get to investigate what I want, everything has a civic lens. Take this class. Through her leadership, students have addressed important community issues such as homelessness, literacy, mental health and substance abuse, human trafficking awareness, immigration, and gender equity. Tracy consistently empowers students to take ownership of their work, advocate for causes they believe in, and engage directly with community leaders and organizations. Her dedication to cultivating civic responsibility, student leadership, and informed action embodies the very spirit of the Susan B. Anthony Award and has left a lasting impact on both her students and the broader school community. On behalf of Genesee Valley BOCES, I am proud to present this award. Thank you.
That was awesome. No one else could start a program like this without Mrs. Slag. Could we have a huge thank you to our panel? Thank you so much. Great questions. The students love you guys being here. It's such an important part of the whole symposium. Thank you to our parents, families, and our student body. Thank you for coming. Hope you guys are inspired. And huge round of applause for our 3 SEAL students. One of our best, right, presentations. So if you don't mind, SEALs team, take pictures out front, behind the OA banner. And thank you so much. Have a great day. See you in class tomorrow.